before I start, I do want to say something real quick, and it is that I also wanted to go last because I absorbed so much knowledge so fast, right? The way my mind works, and this is something that I recently discovered, is that I can learn and apply faster than I initially thought, right? So a lot of the things that, a lot of the way that I'm gonna approach this presentation is through a lot of the knowledge that I got from you guys. You guys were, all of you guys were at your genius. And I think that was the reason why you didn't feel bad during the presentation, just at the beginning, because that's what it is at the end of the day, right? You need to start with your genius, and then you also adapt what you're doing to your audience, right? That's when great things happen, if you think about it. So if at any time we feel like I should have done this in a different way, but I didn't, it is because I wasn't at my genius, and maybe I was trying to be somebody else that I'm not, right? So that's one of the reasons I took a long time to choose my topic, because I wanted to do something great, but then I decided man, I'm not an expert on this. I don't know how to do this, right? So what I'm gonna do, even though I'm not an expert, what I put in this presentation is basically what I'm currently using to acquire skill, right? And at the same time, to have one of the best core values in my opinion, which is speak to action. Okay, if you guys didn't notice, we're gonna talk about the 4 simple steps of skill acquisition. So, my friend Kiernan talked about, in my experience, one of the most difficult parts of the learning process is the unlearning. And if you're too fixed with this type of knowledge, then removing it is gonna be so difficult, right? It actually came from a research about expert level in high competitive environments like sports, like the Olympics, for example. So people quickly misunderstood that, and they thought it was to acquire any skill. And that's crazy, because if you think about it, that's a full-time job for 5 years. And even worse, when we have people in their jobs that don't acquire any skill in 5 years. This guy right here.
My biggest regret in business was not starting soon. It took me 4 years to build my first website, and the day I actually started to build my first website, it took me 10 hours. And so the thing is it takes usually about 20 hours to be proficient in any skill we do. But most of us, myself included, wait years to take the first hour. And it's not that we avoid learning new skills because we're lazy. We avoid learning new skills because we're afraid of sucking, and we're afraid of failing and feeling insufficient. The more I try to train myself out of that and associate the feeling of insufficiency with the feeling of learning and growth, the faster I've been able to compress the years between when I want to start doing something and when I actually start, so that when I want to start doing something, I actually start immediately, so I can start paying down those first 10 or 20 or 30 hours of learning how to do it immediately.
So, do you guys notice what he said in the presentation? It's over there. It takes usually about 20 hours. So, guess what people thought? I think you meant 2,000 hours, not 20. Yeah, Alex Ramosi doesn't make mistakes in his videos, so that was weird. 20 hours to become proficient, more like 20 hours to understand the absolute basics. So now we have people disagreeing with the business god, right? And then, did he say 20 hours to learn a new skill? In what world? He's becoming even more dramatic, right? And this one thinks he knows more than what Hormozy is thinking. He says, he means you spend 20 hours, say, in a week, in total, where you actually sit and learn, read, and implement stuff. For instance, you want to learn a language, so you get your first 20-30. What do you guys think about those comments? Or do you agree with Alex, or do you agree with the comments? It goes back to what Kieran was saying. Benchmarks gives you a start, right? It gets you focused. It gives you a direction, right? There is a bunch of benchmarks, but they're not perfect. They're not gonna work for everybody, right? So one of the things that I learned from you guys was, I was sitting there, and when I was seeing everybody at their genius, I started to absorb information, because I'm not gonna be exactly like you. I'm not gonna be in your role. I don't have your skills, but I could take some of it and apply it to my own life, right? So this is gonna be my best attempt at showing what I'm actually doing to acquire skill, and you guys decide what you guys can use for your own usage, okay? I got this from a TikTok. I actually said Tech Talk. In my mind, at least, I said TED Talk. Did I say it right?
Yes,
TED
you understood
Talk.
TikTok. Because her TikTok, like, I don't know if that's.
Now, the 20 hours seem more legit after I said it was a TED Talk than a TikTok. Okay, so this is, I wanted you guys to laugh, but I also wanted to tell you that I've been doing a lot of stuff with my English, right? And I didn't need 10,000 hours. I didn't need to go back to school. I did all my English school when I was in high school. Aside from high school, like on a private course. I didn't need lots of confidence and lots of talent to start applying English. In fact, I'm still learning how to pronounce better, how my accent is still not so good, right? But I am doing a lot more than ever with my English. But everything started when I was in my exchange program to the University of Oklahoma. I was telling Esteban this weekend that I made a course, I passed the exam, I got to my first class, and I didn't understand anything the teacher was saying. Man, the guy was talking about, one person was talking about IT department, and the entire conversation, I thought he was talking about Haiti, the country, because it was when there was the earthquake. Yeah, IT.
In Spanish, Haiti is IT.
Yeah.
And what did you understand about it? In Spanish.
Nothing.
Haiti has a lot of systems. So it's IT technology. Yeah.
And guess what I thought at that moment? Did I make a mistake? Shouldn't I have come here, right? And it was because the earthquake was happening at the moment. So that earthquake that almost killed all the people in Haiti. So that was my mistake. However, within a couple of weeks, I understood most of the most important things of the classes, and I did 2 semesters in my exchange program, and I ended up with a 4.0 GPA out of 4.0, right? So, but everything was possible in those first 20 hours of listening to classes, right? My listening skill, right? Maybe my English wasn't ready yet, but my listening skill got better in just 20 hours. Let's get started. What are those 4 rapid steps? Deconstruct the skill. Have anyone here ever sat down and said, I need to learn how to, a new program, a new software, like how to solve a problem from a client or something, how to launch a new project? But have you ever sat down and say, this is what I need to do first, this is what I need to do? Maybe not the sequence, but these are the skills that comprise that bigger skill. The fact that she that she knew what she needed to learn and that she had a set plan, just by deconstructing the skill, allow her to get to a position, right? So the problem maybe is not, even if it's 20, 50, we don't even care, but that there is a first step. If you don't do that, then what happens is that what happens to many skills, that we think we're not good at them, and it's just because we haven't even taken the first step.
We haven't done the first 20 hours.
We haven't, or we have we have done the 20 hours without organizing himself. Notice what the guy said, to understand the very basics. If you spend 20 hours reading a book, like you mentioned that you were looking at how to wholesale, but you were not actually wholesaling, maybe you used those 20 hours. But you didn't know what was the skills you needed to learn. You didn't even start it, right? And there was no practice involved. Basically, make sure that you know that every single skill has digestible chunks. So for example, presentation, you didn't feel bad when you were here, but that was because you did all the chunks before. The first and foremost, you were talking about something you were comfortable about talking, like time management, and then you applied all you know to all the steps, right? Prioritize the most important piece of knowledge. That's priority time. There's no time for everything, so we need to use time management to spend those 20 hours in what matters the most, right? And each skill is like specific. So you guys I hope you guys are already thinking how you're gonna apply it to your next skill, right? That you guys wanna learn. Speak to action. Some of the times that we don't start is because we are afraid that we are working on the wrong chunks. But it doesn't really matter because you can go back and start again. So that's when the skill may take you 20, 30, 50, 100, 1 year, like you mentioned at some point, that keeping the long-term mindset is huge, right? That's what happens there. Speak to action is gonna be huge because you don't know what you don't know, right? So you need to go there, fail, and learn again. And really, skills are bundle of skills, not really simple skills, right? So public speaking is not just like here and talking. No, there is a lot more to it than what you see in the surface, right? Like each of you were using your genius. I felt like I was in a class, for example, with Paula. That was a master class, and even better because it was like personalized, right? So that's amazing. Guys, second one. Learn enough to self-correct. What do you guys think about this one? This one is crucial because you need to find, this is a benchmark, 3 to 5 resources. A benchmark, right? Not 20, not 100, like you mentioned, but just enough. That way you're not gonna procrastinate, right? Because you can be procrastinating because you're afraid of the task and failing, but you could also be procrastinating because you think you need more information than you actually do. Some resources hide from you because of the money. Maybe you have to pay for the best education, and that costs money, not knowing what the problem is. If you don't know what the problem is, what resources are you gonna look for, right? But each of us have solved similar problems in the past, okay? And if we haven't, raise your hand and ask people around. We have like an amazing team. Somebody may have gone through the same problem and fixed it already. That's why some of the resources that are the best ones are mentors. Kiernan here was talking about Sean, Jeremy Miner, and a lot of coaches here. Because mentors, and I consider each and every one of you a mentor for like today. I learned so much stuff that I was able to self-correct faster. I got enough information that I could apply, and I did it, and I'm feeling a lot better presenting right now, for example. Tutorials. Of course, sometimes you need to go to tutorials. Nobody else can know it. Master classes, right? And quiz. Who remembers what Kaizen is? You guys remember that I looked up in Google? Exactly what you're saying is summarizing continuous improvement. The reason I put it there, we're in rapid skill acquisition, right? And this framework, in my opinion, it gives you the focus on, okay, I know what the skills are needed to construct the big one. Now I know what I need to learn and apply it, right? But I need to remind that both steps are important. Like if I only know the skills and then I just do random stuff, then that's when maybe hustle culture happens and you get burned out because you're just doing things for the sake of doing them. But if you're also doing step number 2, you are learning new stuff, applying them, and then you listen to your calls, for example, if you're an account manager, if you're a closer, right? You're asking for feedback. If you are in systems, like how good I was with this project, then you immediately can like self-correct, right? So you're learning, applying, self-correcting. Third skill, and we're almost done. It's only 40 skills, 40 steps, just 4 steps. Remove practice barriers. Have you guys, and please be completely honest about this one. Have you guys ever thought consciously about what the barriers to learn a skill could be? It's really any obstacle. That could be that could be anything else, but you guys can become like really creative about what can be an obstacle, right? If I'm not a morning person, for example, and I have a meeting at 9 a.m., then that could be an obstacle to help that client. So I start waking up earlier. If you guys think about it, it really is, each skill has has their own obstacles, so you ask around, you watch YouTube videos. But again, if you watch a podcast, if you have that mindset, then you apply it immediately because you're looking for something exactly. And if the podcast turns out to be not what you thought, then you drop it. If the book turns out like, hey, I'm not sure where I'm going with this book, you drop it. You don't have to finish it, right? So basically, it's everything that is a bad habit as well, like waking up too late, not exercising, and that comes to me, not eating healthy and all that stuff. Toxic self-talk. Like how many times you're about to start a meeting and you're like already, no, I'm not good enough for dealing with this. I'm not up for the challenge to deal with this guy, right? So you need to do something to remove that, right? And Esteban has some very good strategies for that. I've seen him preparing him for difficult stuff. And sometimes he's just like jumping and putting like loud music or whatever. I mean, you have like a lot of good stuff for that. So again, ask your peers, right? Ask people around, ask your boss and everything. Not believing in yourself, not learning from someone who is where you wanna be. Sometimes, I don't know why, we want to be the one who knows everything. And like you mentioned, that happens, the ego thing happens with time management as well, right? Time management. Yeah. Yeah, like, exactly, you mentioned what it was. So it was when you were talking about delegating. But yeah, you can, like, I mean, you shouldn't forget this. Like, it doesn't matter if you've done it before. Like, I raised my hand to Paola at the beginning. I said, like, I am really bad at time management. But then again, I got better and I hit a plateau and I didn't raise my hand again, right? Maybe I think I did, but we never had that meeting, right?
I think it has to be like more like small talks and actually
Small talks. Okay, you're right. But in other topics, I think I mean, that's also speed to action. Like if you're like, I don't even know what the problem is. Lau, Daniela, if they're my fellow account managers, maybe they know, right? Doesn't matter if I've been for longer. Doesn't really matter. Like right here, Maria was teaching about the hustle culture, right? When the one who has been doing this for the longer time is Esteban, right? So it doesn't matter, like, I mean, we just need to collaborate. And last but not least, guys, practice at least 20 hours. So after the initial controversial, remember the average that I was giving about the 10,000 hours, a full-time job for 5 years? 20 hours is 45 minutes for 30 days. At 45 minutes a day for 30 days. Yeah. So it sounds more manageable now, at least from this perspective. Now, conscious incompetence, or in simple terms, the frustration point. Everybody starts something thinking that they know what they're doing. And then there's two steps before this one, but that's not really relevant here. What is relevant is that people stop at conscious incompetence. They don't go to the next step, which is unconscious competence. I think that's the last one, unconscious competence. That you're doing stuff just because it flows. And everyone here is familiar with that because you guys are good at something already, that you just feel like you get in the zone and you flow with it, right? That's when you're into unconscious competence. You don't have to think about it. But here is the second step, when you realize how bad you are at something. So the idea of the 20 hours is also, now that you have a plan laid out, right? Then you are gonna use some of those hours to prepare and some of those hours to practice. Some of those hours to prepare, some of those hours to practice. And if you guys do a conscious analysis of where you were doing those skills, you were not doing that. Most likely you were reading a book, or you were pretending that you were doing the task, but you weren't actually doing it. Or you were doing it and you were failing really bad at it. Public speaking, I failed. You guys cannot tell how many times I failed at it. And I thought I was trying, but I wasn't trying. I wasn't having a framework. You got into your zone, right? But now that you have this 20-hour tool, you can put it into practice consciously. That should give you hope. 3 steps before, 20 hours, put it into practice. You're not going to be a perfect every time. It doesn't matter, right? If I would have done like a terrible job today, I would be like, doesn't matter. I mean, I have another try, right? And I'm gonna, maybe what you said, maybe I'm gonna put myself in a less risk moment, like where the stakes are not so high, and then try again, right? And while I'm saying this, I'm thinking of skills that I could have done that as an account manager, which is great. Basis for something greater. Again, I guess almost the conclusion here, but not yet, is gonna be, it doesn't matter if it's 20, 30, 100, doesn't really matter. Maybe if you want like a simple skill, you can do it in 5 hours. But what it matters is that you commit to something greater and you have the basis, like you mentioned. I think it was you, right, Karen? You said that it gives you started, right? Or it was Lena or something. When something gets you started, you can like you can like iterate and go back and do it again and never give up, but now you have a plan. So instead of maybe you, at the beginning you were gonna need like 1,000 hours, but now with this, maybe it's 100. And that's the long-term mindset you mentioned. Like you're gonna take it like more like consciously, like more relaxed, but then maybe you achieve it sooner than you even thought. I'm just gonna finish with this. You've learned a skill using these 4 steps before. Deconstruct the skill, learn enough to self-correct, remove practice barriers, and practice at least 20 hours. So I hope you guys now have a tool that you can use it to do it more consciously. Applications, just to give you ideas, you can apply this structure to learning, right? How can I learn better? Like I mentioned that my brain works by getting a lot of stuff and applying it immediately. That's what I did. I mean, I used to just learn and not apply. The difference is now that I'm applying, but I'm always analyzing everything people is saying and I'm trying to connect the dots. That's the way I do it. Maybe that's something that you guys can learn as well, right? And that could be valuable for you. Improvisation. Remember the guy doing the song, the trouble one? Yeah, I discovered that in public speaking, I'm never gonna have a script and learn it and be natural at it. I'm gonna freak out. So instead, what I did was what I just told you. I had all these structured steps where a lot of this is improvisation. I mean, I feel like that guy. I didn't practice one time, not a single time, not one time, because I just wanted to have the clear structures. And that's the reason I said this morning I was inspired, because I was putting the steps. And Slack usage, but that's something else. Any skill at your role. So think about it. And what skills will you start learning today? The learning skill that I just talked about? Or what else? But whatever you decide, next time that you go to your room, there is that thingy? The journal. I wanna guess that nobody has written the first word in it. And it's completely new like mine. So go in the first page, put that skill that you wanna learn and start doing the plan, okay? I'm gonna ask you later, guys. So you have only one shot. First time you go to your room, that has to be there. Thank you, guys.